That is my mother, my grandmother, and me when I was a baby. My mother was not married when she became pregnant with me at the age of 19. And back in 1966, an unmarried mother was not a good thing to be. The young man who got her pregnant was not ready to get married or be a father, and my grandparents decided that she should move with them to Arizona, and that's where I was born a few months later. About a year later, she met a nice man, and we moved with him to New York. And it turned out, though, that he wasn't so nice. Once my mother was away from her family, he became abusive, and that violence ended with him locking us in a cellar. His mother found us and set us free, and my uncle wired money so that we could fly back to Arizona. And my mother thought we had escaped from a very dangerous man. Sadly, this was far from the truth. On a warm summer evening a few weeks later, we were in the car, dressed up, driving to a party. I sat in the front seat between my mother and grandmother, and my 11-year-old aunt sat in the back. A car passed us on the highway, and there he was. He had followed us from New York. He was angry, driving aggressively, and signaling that my grandmother should pull over. Not wanting to have an accident, she pulled the car to the side of the road. My mother said, "He probably just wants to talk." So he pulled the car in front of us and got out and came to my mother's side. She got out to talk to him, and they argued. He wanted her to come back with him, and she said no. And then she shouted, "No, don't." No one saw the gun under his jacket. He pulled it out and shot her, and then he pointed the gun at me, and she turned, and he shot her in the back, and she fell across me on the seat. By this time, my grandmother was already running around the car to stop him. He turned and shot her 4 times, and she fell to the ground. And then he went to the back door of the car and opened it up and pointed the gun at my aunt. She held up a blanket. Click, click. There were no more bullets in the gun. He had emptied the gun when he shot my grandmother. And that's when he saw the headlights of an oncoming car. He panicked and drove away. My grandmother called out to my aunt, "Are you there? You have to signal the car." She got out and used her blanket to signal for help. The police came, an ambulance came. My mother was dead. The second bullet hit her heart. My grandmother was seriously wounded but alive, and my aunt and I were unharmed. The killer was caught, and he died in prison many years later. I grew up hearing this story. I always knew that my mother died trying to protect me, that my grandmother had risked her life to save us all, and that my 11-year-old aunt tried to stop bullets with a blanket, that she was strong enough to get out of the car and signal a stranger who stopped to help. So, why am I sharing this tragic story with you? Well, I'm here to talk to you about heroes. My mother and grandmother were heroes that day. They risked their lives, and my mother died trying to save us. And this is what defines a hero: risk. A hero is a person who takes a personal risk to help someone else. Emergency workers, firefighters, police officers, members of the military, everyday citizens are called upon to be heroes. Whistleblowers risk their jobs or careers to stop wrongdoing. Activists take risks to stop human rights violations or help animals or stop environmental destruction. Look at any disaster or country torn by war, and you will find heroes who are helping others and saving lives at great personal risk. And I would love to tell you that I am that kind of hero, that being a hero is in my blood. But that would be a lie. I was bullied terribly in school. I was never brave enough to defend myself or anyone else. Why wasn't I brave? Why wasn't I heroic like the other women in my family? I asked myself this question a lot growing up. I finished school, I got a job, I went to university. I was supported in so many ways by that brave aunt of mine and the rest of my family. I met a wonderful man. I got married, moved to Germany, and I became a mother to 2 beautiful boys. Would I be a hero if my family was in danger? I didn't know. And then about 7 years ago, I read an article about Dr. Philip Zimbardo. Dr. Zimbardo is an eminent psychologist from Stanford University, and he's best known for the Stanford University prison experiment and his book, The Lucifer Effect. Dr. Zimbardo spent the better part of his life studying what makes good people do really bad things. And I learned that he was shifting his focus from what makes good people do bad things to what makes good people or ordinary people do heroic things. He discovered that the heroes share certain characteristics and that we can learn to develop these characteristics. He founded the Heroic Imagination Project to teach people to lead heroic lives. And that got my attention because that meant that someone like me who was not brave and not heroic could learn to lead a heroic life. The article also mentioned Matt Langdon. He's there. And Matt is the founder of the Hero Construction Company and the Hero Roundtable Conference. He's authored 2 books on heroes, and he teaches schools how to create a culture of heroism. So I had to know more. I contacted Matt, and that's when my own heroic journey began. He generously shared his program with me and set me on a path for teaching young people how they can learn to lead heroic lives. And that's also when I learned a new word, a word that gave me hope that one day, if I could be brave or heroic if I needed to be. And that word was everyday hero. So what is an everyday hero, and why do you want to be one? Well, an everyday hero is someone who actively works to make the world a better place. And to find everyday heroes, we don't need to look any further than the refugee crisis right here in Europe. Many of the refugees themselves have helped others make the harrowing journey to get here. There are thousands of volunteers working to feed, clothe, and take care of them when they get here. Our communities are full of everyday heroes. There are people helping the elderly, helping the homeless. There are people fighting for social justice, people working to help young people, or at animal shelters, or cleaning up their neighborhoods. And our world needs all kinds of heroes, with one small exception. You'll notice in both of my definitions, I left something out. I didn't mention extreme sports. Being brave enough to jump out of an airplane or swim with a shark does not make you a hero. If you want the honor of being a hero, you have to be out there doing something to protect those sharks or helping others. And you know what the best thing is about helping others? You are preparing yourself for the day when somebody might need you to do something heroic. So let's talk about some things that you need to do to become an everyday hero. The first thing you need to do is see problems as challenges that can be solved. Now, I work with young people. So how do we motivate our children or ourselves to see problems as challenges and also be motivated to solve them? Well, I used to think that the best thing I could do was tell them how smart they are. Smart people solve problems, right? Well, it turns out that you should never, ever tell anyone, your children, your students, anyone, how smart they are. And I know that sounds wrong, but hear me out. When I tell you, good job, you must be really smart, then you think, wow, that's great, good thing I'm one of the smart people. But what happens when you make a mistake or you come across a problem that you can't solve? Then you think, uh-oh, Michelle said I was smart, but I just made a mistake, or I don't know how to solve this problem. Praising you for being smart can paralyze you. You might be afraid to try something new because you're afraid to make a mistake, or afraid it might show that you're not so smart after all. Dr. Carol Dweck, a research psychologist at Stanford University, calls this a fixed mindset. And children who grow up with this mindset learn to avoid challenges and give up easily. But there is a better way. When you learn new things, your brain grows like a tree, and the branches get stronger when you try and make mistakes and try again until you succeed. So when I say something like, wow, good job, you've worked really hard, I'm praising your hard work, not just the result, and showing you the value of making mistakes. This encourages you to embrace challenges and leads to what Dr. Dweck calls a growth mindset. And a growth mindset leads you to embrace challenges and keep trying until you succeed. And it also teaches you that solving problems is rewarding. And in a world full of problems, an everyday hero needs to have a growth mindset and turn that into a hero mindset. And that means seeing these problems in the world as challenges that we can solve. Now, the next thing that an everyday hero needs is a good attitude. And I'm sure you know the question that goes with this picture. Is the glass half full or half empty? How you see that glass has a big impact on your health, your stress level, how you treat others. And you can learn to not only see the glass as half full, but that you can actually fill it up with a few mindful principles, like being thankful, not only for what you have, but what others do for you. And I don't know if you've noticed, but human beings have a tendency to focus on the negative side of things. And when we were still living in caves, this was important to our survival. But today, not so much. So it's important that you choose to be optimistic, that you choose to see the positive side of things, that you choose to see the glass half full, and look for the good news in the world. And it's out there if you look for it, I promise. Remembering happy experiences is another thing that you can do to make yourself happier. Remembering happy moments is a great thing to do before going to bed, especially for children. And here's something fun. Do you know what happens mechanically when you laugh or smile? The muscles in your cheeks press on a nerve that is directly linked to your brain. So if you do this for 30 seconds, maybe privately, if you happen to be at work or something, your body starts to produce hormones that make you feel good. So why is happiness important to being an everyday hero? Well, happiness is important because you're more likely to stop and help someone else when you're happy. But you're not done there. I want you to go even further. Everyday heroes need to perform acts of kindness and take action in the world. Being kind and volunteering your time to help others helps you become a hero because helping becomes a habit. It also makes you feel good, and it helps you see things from another person's perspective. And you need to go even further than that. Self-defense and first aid training are important tools that help you feel confident to take action in emergencies. Now, up till now, all of this sounds pretty easy. You've got a growth mindset, you've got a good attitude, you're seeing the glass half full, and you've done some first aid training. But there's a dark side to our human nature, and there's something called the bystander effect. The bystander effect is when you see something bad happening and you don't do anything to help. The bystander effect is why children do not intervene to stop bullying in schools, why people don't stop and help in medical emergencies, or when someone is being attacked. My now good friend and mentor, Matt Langdon, says, the opposite of a hero is not a villain, it's a bystander. And this is also true on a global scale. This is why the bystander effect is why society has been so slow to deal with problems like climate change, why we tend to be overwhelmed by the problems facing the rest of the world, why we continue to buy products that we know have been manufactured under terrible conditions. We like to think that for such big problems, we would be more motivated to do something about it, but the exact opposite happens to be true. We tend to think that someone else should take care of it, or maybe we'll take care of it. We have become global bystanders. But I have some good news for that too, because you can beat the bystander effect. That's been proven. The moment that you make the brave decision to stop and help, it has a powerful effect on those around you. It makes others, or it motivates others to stop and help as well. This is called positive bystander intervention. And this is also true on a global scale. When you volunteer your time, when you support organizations that are doing good things in the world, you motivate others to do the same. And together, we can accomplish so much more. It's not just about me, it's not just about you, it's about all of us and future generations. Every single thing that you do makes a difference in this world. And you have to decide what kind of difference you want to make. I want you to be an everyday hero and make a positive difference in the world. And to do that, you don't need to go right out and rescue someone from a burning building. Just be kind. Stop and offer your help. Volunteer your time to help refugees or others in your community. Take your kids with you. Spend your money on fair and sustainable products. Pressure your governments and your companies to do the same. If you're an educator, map your community with your students so that they can see that there are problems in their own communities that can be solved. Being an everyday hero is an opportunity to make the world a better place. And the next time you're thinking, someone should do something about that, remember that you are someone, and that there are probably other people who are just as motivated as you are to solve that problem. Now, there's one more question that I haven't answered. Will I ever be as brave and heroic as the other women in my family? I don't know. I may never know. But I do know that I can be an everyday hero, and I can make a positive difference in the world by helping others. And that's exactly what I want from you today. Be an everyday hero. And I know it's late, but I hope you'll start tonight. Thank you.